The same. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Call Phil Twyford.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to say I'm a little surprised that Maggie Barry took a call in this debate, because there's a long-established principle in this House that we should, not really a standing order, but it's known as the Maggie Barry principle, that, for example, if you don't have children, then you shouldn't speak about a bill which relates to child rearing of children. It was very clear from Maggie Barry's speech that Maggie Barry had never visited Forrester Heights. She showed us photographs. She told us stories about the old days when she visited the Botanic Gardens in Oamaru. But it was very clear that she hadn't visited Forrester Heights, and that's a clear breach of the Maggie Barry principle. So, Sir, Labor is supporting this bill, and as colleagues have pointed out, no Oamaru stone has been left unturned as we have sought to solve the mystery that lies at the heart of this bill. And that is, sir, the controversy over whether or not this land that we're talking about at Forrester Heights was indeed endowment land or whether it was land with reserve status. And that confusion lies at the heart of the two debates that we've had in the House on this, and a lengthy select committee process. And a number of members of this House visited Oamaru and in fact visited Forrester Heights, and I was one of those. And I want to thank Warren Crawford and Barry Monks, who have really done everything they could to try to ensure that the truth comes out in this issue. And Barry Monks did significant historical research, so sifting through what is an incomplete, confusing and chaotic paper trail to the historical record about this block of land. And I want to commend Barry Monks for the work that he did. But it is clear, sir, for members on the Labor benches at least, that to the best of our knowledge, to the best of our understanding, and I think a majority on the Select Committee, that in fact it was a genuine mistake, lost in the mists of time now, that this block of land known as Forrester Heights was regarded as reserve land, whereas in fact it was endowment land. So, and I want to say to New Zealand First and Green colleagues in this debate that I believe that it is pretty clearly established that this, the question of what happens to this land, whether it's developed or not, is a matter for the Council to decide. It is not a matter for this House through some backdoor route by, for instance, denying a bill that seeks to rectify the legal status of the land. It is not a legitimate course of action for this House to interfere in the normal and legitimate workings of the democratically elected council of Waitaki District. And I can understand that the New Zealand First members take the view that they weren't convinced by the discussion at Select Committee. And that's a matter of interpretation and reasoning, and that is entirely their call to make, of course. And that's the basis of New Zealand First's position. But I do question really the logic and coherence of the Green Party's position in this debate. To vote against this bill on the basis that they don't believe the quality of the consultation that Waitaki District Council made in relation to seeking a resource consent for subdivision, that they don't believe that the quality of public consultation was good enough, that is not a legitimate or logical reason to vote against this bill. So that, I think, sir, needs to be said. Why were the people of Oamaru, or at least some of the community in Oamaru, so suspicious about this bill, sir? And I think that there are reasons why the people of Oamaru were suspicious about what looked like, on the face of it, what looked like a kind of a jack-up between property developers and local politicians to turn what they regarded as a piece of valuable public reserve land into a private housing subdivision. And the reason, sir, is that the National Party has form in this area. There's a reason that the public is suspicious of a party that never hesitates to try to sell off public resources and public assets into private ownership. That is the reason that the people of Oamaru are suspicious that the National Party would bring a bill to this House to try to flog off public reserve land. Now, as it turns out, in this instance, it is the right thing to do, we believe, based on the best reading of the historical record, to rectify the confusion and the ambiguity about the status of this block of land. But there's a reason that people are suspicious of the National Party, because they have a track record of selling off assets that belong to the community, that belong to the public. They believe ideologically that property and assets that belong to the people can best be shifted into private ownership and private control. They have a track record of constantly undermining our democratic institutions and local government, and within the next few days we're going to debate a bill in this House, which is the Local Government Amendment Bill, which does a gross disservice to communities and to local democracy in this country. So those are the reasons why people are suspicious of the National Party. And there is another members' bill on the order paper currently. It's the Cold Creek Rural Water Supply Bill, which is another bill that on the face of it looks as a local bill. I beg your pardon, and thank you to the member for correcting me. It is a local bill, but it is another bill which on the face of it looks like a deal that's been cooked up by local interests to shift a publicly owned water supply into private hands. And people are suspicious of that, and they will be, and the National Party gives them every reason to be suspicious about that, sir. So the members on the other side of the House don't like hearing a few home truths, but they should just listen and in fact listen to the voices of the people of New Zealand who are utterly opposed to asset sales and privatisation. I visited Oamaru, and as part of a trip around New Zealand, sir, talking to rural and provincial councils and actually listening to them about how this government is squeezing the lifeblood out of local roads and local transport, sir, because of its misguided and mismanaged transport policies. And I was in Oamaru, and the local federated farmers, the local council, they were scathing about the failure of the local member to stand up for them on the question of local roads. Not only the question of local roads and how this government is cutting the funding for local roads and putting more and more pressure on the local ratepayer, and they were terribly upset about what this government's doing with the local government bill, taking the democratic rights of local communities away from them, setting communities up all around rural and provincial New Zealand for forced amalgamations. That's what this government's agenda is in local government. And, sir, that's why people have been so suspicious about this bill, sir. But as it turns out, I believe that the member for Waitaki should be congratulated, as many colleagues have said, on bringing this bill to the House. It's a perfectly good and reasonable bill. The Select Committee has done its work. It has taken the advice of officials. It has investigated the historical record. And I believe the best efforts have been made to actually determine what is the appropriate status for this land. Should it be endowment land? Should it be reserve land? Sir, Labor is supporting this bill. Thank you very much.
I call Paul Goldsmith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I hesitate to stand